It is 2:00 and this meeting will come to order. First, we will have our roll call and all of our trustees are here, our attorney is here. The treasurer is not here yet. Thank you. We will have our pledge of allegiance first.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that objects, behavior, and noise should not play the word work or other people's experience of the meeting. We have 3 people signed up to speak. Speakers must state their name and community and speak for no more than 3 minutes. Persons addressing the board are expected to observe a level of civility and decorum appropriate for a public meeting. No personal attacks or disruption from audience members will be tolerated. So first we have Pat Brownlee. Pat Brownlee, Post Falls. Psychologist R.D. Lane. The range of what we think and do is limited by what we fail to notice. I needed 747 words to describe some things that I had noticed about this board's functioning, and it was published as my turn in the press on Tuesday. The board majority, I don't think, has noticed how much better you could be functioning. I don't think you've noticed how Chair Audison's behavior and Mr. Foss's behavior combined.
Point of order.
Yeah, no personal attacks.
That's not a personal, that's, the public is allowed to speak about officials.
Okay.
Okay, it wasn't an attack.
Yeah.
I don't think the board majority has noticed how Chair Audison's behaviors and Mr. Foss's behaviors combine to skew trustees' decisions and to stifle your attorney advice. Citizens have noticed. People watching your meeting videos have noticed. And my hope is this board will start noticing now and hopefully make some changes. I believe this board has more capabilities than you're currently exercising. And I would encourage you to consider holding only 1 meeting in the month of March to give staff opportunity to address facilities issues from the storm damage. Lastly, I'd like to quote an American social anthropologist named Jennifer James. She said, "Change is very hard. We prefer the familiar and the known. We avoid change. We deny what we know in our bones. We block experiences. We ignore intuition. We pass by insight. We avoid transformation. We hold on, afraid to change a pattern, even when we are in pain." When you feel conflict, pain, tension, fear, or confusion, this is a change trying to happen. Don't avoid it or withdraw. Don't turn to busyness or denial. Lean into the feeling, work on the change, take the risk. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next we have Teresa Burkett.
Can I ask that our board members not be disruptive? I'm finding it difficult because of, can we just sit still and listen? I would appreciate it.
Carry on.
Good afternoon. My name is Teresa Burkett and I live in Post Falls. I understand that you will be discussing the material selection and withdrawal policies again. However, I suggest postponing any changes until our state legislature passes or revokes S 1289, which is the Children's School and Library Protection Amendment to Chapter 15, Title 18. In case you're not familiar with this bill, you can ask Trustee Audison, who spoke publicly in favor of the original bill, HB 384. This bill would have allowed anyone to challenge any book in our libraries and seek civil action, which would have penalized this very library. Is this the trustee you want representing your library? As I have stated in previous comments, it is part of your job description, Trustee Otteson and others, to serve as advocates for intellectual freedom and to represent the public interest in libraries. You are failing in this regard. Trustee Ploss and Hanley, you ran on a platform of fiscal responsibility, and yet you are failing. Trustee Ploss, you want to acquire a new insurance agent and policy that will cost taxpayers $130,000. Additionally, you hired a new attorney, which is costing more than the budgeted amount, and you don't even listen to his advice. Your decisions are causing this network to go over budget unnecessarily. Furthermore, Trustee Ploss and Hanley, I would like to draw your attention to your statement that you were elected to safeguard the children. However, I disagree with this. Kootenai County has approximately 70,000 registered voters, excluding CDA, and you received only approximately 14,000 votes each. This means that you have received only 20% of the registered votes, which is not enough to claim a mandate. Hence, it is your responsibility to represent all of us in your district, whether we voted for you or not. Please keep this in mind. And I also will ask you to listen to Director Eccles, that you only hold one meeting next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Dave Riley.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dave Riley. I'm from Post Falls. And I came here today because a couple of weeks ago, I saw a post online about the water damage at the library in Post Falls, about how a bunch of books and other stuff had to get thrown out because of water damage. So I looked, and dumpster diving is not illegal in Idaho. So I went dumpster diving, and I've got an exhibit I'd like to pass around. There's a DVD that was in the dumpster with no visible water damage. It plays, could have been resold. Don't really understand why these things are being thrown out, because they're clearly not water damage. Kind of sounds like fraud to me. Another thing that was interesting are these DVDs that were in the dumpster. Game of Thrones. It's a medieval fantasy series, 8 seasons. According to GQ magazine, there are 72 episodes and 79 explicit sex scenes that last multiple seconds in clear focus. They ranked them. So that's quite interesting. They are not rated. There's no rated R, rated PG-13. They are not rated. And from what I understand, you don't need to be over 18 to take these things out. So the claims that there isn't porn, hardcore incest porn with penises visible in the library is just wrong. I've got it right here. So something needs to be done. I'm really sick of having this debate. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our public speaking, our public comment portion.
More that want to speak, they can later. We still have time.
Oh, is that okay?
Sorry. Back there.
Okay, next we have Matthew Erickson.
Sorry for the poor handwriting there. My name is Pastor Matt Erickson. I'm a resident of Post Falls and been in the community for a long time. And my biggest concern is when you don't trust the people around you, when you are playing a witch hunt, instead of listening to their advice, you're building a climate that is not conducive for working and moving forward. We have an incredible library staff who work with people that they disagree with every day, who can serve the needs of people who they vary with in all sorts of ways every day. I am a regular user of the library. My children are regular users of the library. And I can't tell you the number of times that our incredible library staff have gone out of their way to take care of me, to help my children. And when you treat them with distrust, you are dishonoring the hard work and commitment that they have given. And so I implore you, whether you agree or disagree, treat these staff members and all of the staff members with the respect and trust that they deserve. They need it because they are serving people diligently and faithfully. That's all.
Right. Thank you. That concludes our public comment section.
So, Chair,
Yes.
before we move on, and I'm not sure if this is where I'm supposed to do it, I think it is. Since a trustee can't be here for the whole meeting, I'd like to move that we move the, executive session up to a position where she could be, where the trustee could be here, for that, session. So maybe like right now or after the, financial statement.
Okay, is this the appropriate time to change? Okay. All right, it has been, right, where did you want it?
I move that we move the executive session on this agenda to after public comment is what I put, but I don't know if there's any time before the break. So I'll just say after public comment. Want me to say it again?
Just tell me if I get it wrong. It has been moved to, move the executive session after public comment. Okay, is there any discussion on that?
No.
Okay, so the motion is to move the executive session after public comment. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, noted. The ayes have it, and the executive session is moved to after. Oh, well,
Well, that was just.
okay, yeah, we
On
haven't
amending
gotten
the
it,
agenda.
but thanks for reminding.
Did everybody say aye? I just want to make sure I saw some.
I didn't, but it wasn't necessary.
That was it.
So there was three.
I just wanted to say something. And thank you very much, because I'm the person who has to leave and I appreciate it.
Okay,
Is that, it needs a 2/3 vote or unanimous consent? So-
That is to go in, not.
No, on amending an agenda.
Oh,
okay, well, then I guess
We have 2/3. Okay.
or, yeah,
Yeah,
it would have been
thank
two,
you.
but anyway, so. All right, so the ayes have it, and the executive session is moved to after public comment,
Which is now.
which is now. So we will need to have a motion to go into executive session.
Okay, I'm gonna move that we go into executive session, Idaho Code 74206B.
Okay, actually, it's supposed to be 1B.
Oh.
It's a typo.
It's a 1B.
Yep.
All right, 1B.
It has been moved to go into executive session, Idaho Code 74206 1B. A roll call vote, starting with Klaus.
No.
aye.
Aye.
Fine.
Aye. And the ayes have it. We will now go into executive session, Idaho Code 74206 1B. Sorry, audience, we planned this at the end so that it would be more convenient for you, but anyway, but that's happened, so thanks. All right, we are back in session and we will move on to the consent agenda. Minutes of the regular meeting of January 18th, 2024, CIN November 2023 minutes, and CIN January financial statements. Are there any corrections to those? Questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah. No, I have one for financial. That's next, right?
Well, the CLN financial will be next.
Yeah.
This includes the CIN financial.
I move that we accept the consent agenda. Do I need to do a date on that?
January
It's
18th.
fine.
It has been moved that we accept the consent agenda. All those in favor, say, or, yeah, further discussion on that.
I don't. This is just.
Karen?
Is that for the CIN meeting from
It's for
January
these
18th,
three-
or is that include the
these-
CIN?
These three things.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, without objection, we will vote on the motion to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Okay, the ayes have it and the consent agenda is accepted. Next, we will move on to the Community Library Network, January 2024 financial statements.
I do have a question, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Robinson?
In light of the concern from the director about legal going over considerably over budget, I would like for, and it's been done by other trustees for other line items, I would like line item 70 to be split up into a 70A, which would be legal, and 70B, which would be professional. So we can better track if we need to budget more in the next years for council. This way we'll be able to track why this line item is so far over, which it's not right this second, but it's projected to be that much or a lot over what it was supposed to be. This way we could budget for the correct amount next year if needed.
Okay, and I'm sorry, was that a motion or you're just looking for a majority?
I guess, do I make it?
You could, but I think either one would be fine. Probably easier for me to.
Okay, I move that line item 70 be split into 70A legal and 70B professional.
so this, or is it voted on?
No, it needs a.
Okay, so 70A what?
Legal.
Okay, and 70B would be professional. All right, it has been moved, the line item 70 be split into 70A legal and 70B professional. Discussion? Ms. Blank?
Is there a way, if we did do that, is there a way to provide a budget? For a budget line, to take that budget and, also divide it up as well? That would be a question for the director.
Yes, Janelle, the business manager, and I have budgeted the 82,000, so we can break out what we have for legal services budgeted and what we have for professional services budgeted. I would just as a moment pause and say that the February report may not be able to reflect that. Janelle is out of the office, and so it may need to be in March, if that's acceptable in terms of timeline, but I have no objection.
Trustee Allen?
I was just wondering, is that some action that are done as we start working on the budget for fiscal 25? We're well into the year, 1/3 of the way through, 1/4 of the way through. And the numbers are going to be known, so it's not as if we're not gonna know how much is going toward professional, and I don't know how many different entities that makes up professionals versus legal, so I'm just wondering, can't that just be broken out as a separate line when we actually start working on formulating the next budget?
Director?
I was just gonna point out that this budget has now line under revenues and income in now line 7, 8, and 9. And these were just added to the budget to reflect our recent receipts from the county. And so it's not uncommon to make changes as is needed.
Who's first? Trustee Blank?
I think it would be very helpful to do it now. And there aren't a lot of entries. There are not gonna be a lot of entries that need to be changed. It's not gonna be complicated particularly. I mean, we pay our attorney once a month. We may have paid, we may have 3 entries that need to be changed. And it would be extremely helpful for budgeting next year. I think it is, I take care of our books for our business, and I know for sure this will not be a complicated procedure.
Director?
I'll just point out, if my recollection holds, I recall some conversation last budget season about having legal services pulled out already. So I think this is the second time I've heard discussion of legal services. So I don't have any objection. I think it's consistent with what the board wants.
Sure.
Ms. Robinson?
And just to say again, the most important reason to do it now is so that we do have a better vision for the next year. I'm not saying it's for any other reason than just so we can know what to expect for the next years to come from what we actually paid this year. And to have it separated, I think is very important.
Okay, so our time is up for this section, and after this motion, we still need to accept the financial statements. So without objection, it has been moved that line item 70 be split into 70A legal and 70B professional. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it, and line item 70 will now be split into 70A legal and 70B professional. All right, and I would like to move that the Community Library Network January 2024 financial statements are accepted. There's no discussion.
Why isn't there discussion?
I said if there is no discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's discussion.
I guess I should say the latter if. So do you have?
I do. I have something I'd like to ask. Does the staff have anything that they would like to highlight on this particular financial statement? It looks like we're within our, within the year of 33.33%. Is there anything else that needs to be looked at on this financial statement?
Again, I'll just credit Janelle. I think she does a really great job with the description, so I don't have anything else to add in that. I did already mention that we do have some new revenue line items. And then the only other thing I would highlight is that a trustee asked for information on where revenue comes from. And so we did include in this section the Idaho statutes related to revenue and taxation and description of each of those items. So that was included.
Okay.
Ms. Claus?
I was just gonna ask back on materials. Are we cutting back some since we have 2 libraries that aren't in operation, or are we just buying the same amount and putting them all in the remaining 5 libraries? Or is it slowed down? I can't really tell. It looks like it's reasonable there.
We're doing for both. We are buying some of the same number of copies and just putting them in other libraries, and then we'll transfer them back. And then in other cases, if it's not super critical, we are waiting and we'll do a bigger order once we open the libraries.
Stanley?
Yeah, it's interesting. I had the same question. I had it written down for the possibility of another meeting, but I am wondering, we don't have enough shelf space right now for the books from the 2 libraries that are shut down, and assuming that the books are gonna be needed to be moved in some fashion, either internally or outside. I don't really understand why we're buying any books right now. Again, it's a lack of understanding. I'm not gonna say, I don't know why, but if we're buying books, I can understand if something's got a subscription going on and there's whatever, there's a 3rd book in some series, some very minor amount of spending, but I would think we should be down to like a 90% reduction in material purchases right now. I don't understand where they're gonna go. So that's a question I had actually on my notes here for this meeting toward the end.
Since we're over time, I don't know if you want me to answer that or if you want to put that on it. I would just say, again, it shows a little bit of lack of understanding of, so we do have a lot of bestsellers and those go out in holds. And so by one of the tactics that Lindsay described, by making sure that we still own, let's say, 10 copies of a bestseller, the holds queues are being managed and the public is not being impacted by that. So that's one aspect. And again, it's not on the shelf because it's out in patrons' homes. The other aspect of the publishing industry is some items, I'm gonna say like large type, it's in print at one moment and one time, and then it will never be in print again. And so if you do not capture those items at that time, you really are unable to purchase it. So I would say that those are two germane facts, but that's a much larger discussion.
I have one comment. We also have 5 other buildings that are operational.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion, it has been moved that to accept the Community Library Network January 2024 financial statements. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it, and the Community Library Network January 2024 financial statements are accepted. I also had a suggestion to keep our legal down. The legal reports keep coming up on the agenda, which were, as far as I know, not requested by the board. And the legal research for that takes hours. It really adds to it. So I'd like to propose that legal reports are only on the agenda when the board majority consents to it, or it is both urgent and important.
Is this on the agenda? someplace?
It's part of the financial statements to keep that lower.
Is that something
So-
that would be appropriate for I mean, has this been discussed with the director?
No, I just was hoping that we could get through this quickly because everyone keeps pointing at the legal expenses being out of control, so.
This is a discussion topic. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, and so it's gonna take some time.
Trustee Robinson?
I could be wrong, but maybe you can bring that up in the discussion on receiving legal advice regarding public policies and in that, I don't know if you can or not, but maybe that's a place for that. I don't know.
I'm not sure what the implication there was on who has invited legal counsel to the meetings. So I think that might be a whole discussion.
That wasn't my question, but it sounds like it's gonna be more complicated and to be taken care of quickly, so I guess we should just move on. All right, so next we have discussion of, yes, discussion of Community Library Network January 2024 carry forward balance analysis.
That's this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can just say, at the bottom, I think is the most important, statement. Due to the new state funds, we, are now over 237,000. And without the new state funds, we would have been $85,000 short. I also put a note, on there that is the second semi-annual receipt of the new funds is anticipated, and it should be 322,000. So this is a much better carry forward position.
Trustee Hanley?
There was a typo, I think, on here, I'm not sure. When it says near the bottom, amount over, it says 85,000, and there are too many digits, 44, 5, 6, 9. I'm not sure, maybe it's the decimal points gotta go one to the left, I don't know.
You're right. It's 80, but it is 85,000.
Okay.
Something or other.
Yeah.
Got it.
That was funny because I looked at that.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any further discussion or questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Trustee Blank?
The state funds are what you talked about at our last meeting, is that correct? And there's some explanation about them in here. Did you provide? I think you did.
I do. I put them on the director's report. but,
Okay, that's fine.
But I'm happy to talk about it here.
That sounds great. We can do it in director's report.
Okay, then, without objection, we'll move on to circulation statistics. Any comments, questions? Trustee Robinson?
I was just gonna, point out, if everybody didn't see it, the new patrons and the, in total, minors, 57, minor limited, 13, and teen limited, 2. So those are just the numbers that are coming out with the kids cards. And I just want to make sure everybody, sees that. It's almost towards the bottom of the page. And just, it shows that people are taking advantage of it, of the kids cards.
Okay, if there is nothing else, we will move on to the director's report.
There are several pages in your handout. One starts with the memo from the Trustees County Clerk. And it outlines the funds that we would receive. The next couple of pages show the tax relief and the first half distribution and the second half distribution. And then we have an email from the tax accountant and the auditor's office, which Janelle asked for a little bit more information, and this was her response. And then she does cite in her email a reference to the legislation, and that House Bill 292. So that is included in here. And again, I apologize, it is kind of long. And then you should have a page that looks like this. Janelle wanted me to include, this is what the county tax offices receive for training. And then the page that looks like this, the dark one, in color, that was the training that entities received, and I went to talking about this new amount. And so just characterizing, we knew we were going to get some funds, but we really didn't have an idea of the scope of the funds. And so I don't know if you have any questions, but.
Yeah, my question is really for just a statement. I don't think this is any new money. When we all paid our taxes in December, or when they were due in December, we got a discount because the state was paying for it. So if you had like a $3,000 bill after the state did it, it was maybe 2,300 or 2,400, or so I don't know what the ratio was. But this is just that money coming to us because it didn't come from the taxpayer. So I think I would be surprised if we were getting more money in than what we budgeted for after you add this. Is that what you're thinking? We're getting more money than what our budget said?
So we did not budget at all because we didn't know how much we were going to get. And so now we put it in there, and now we can budget.
But property taxes should be coming lower because people didn't pay as much. Because of the tax state paying. That's all I'm saying. I think the total of the two is probably going to come out to what we budgeted for.
I don't disagree with your statement. Okay, then I'll move on to moving of items. And I did create a little handout for you on that. It's something that looks like this, that's sort of side facing.
Yeah.
It was in the table packet?
Yeah, the table.
Yeah. And it's titled Moving Books, Minor Sections, and Adult Collections. So I'll just read some of it. This report is a response to a request made by a trustee of the January 8th regular meeting for a status report explanation, books moved into silos and minor sections, obscene moved into adult complete. Community Library Network has never had an obscene book, CD, video, music, performance, or program. The Miller test remains the U.S. judicial precedent for determining obscenity harmful to minors is defined in Idaho statute. Trustees and staff have been provided with legal advice and training on what is obscene, how it is determined, and what is harmful to minors. I hope that after this training and after conducting months-long discussions, trustees and staff can consistently use appropriate and accurate language when referring to library items. It is inaccurate to describe any library items as obscene. From January 2023 until February 2024, CIN has relocated in response to reconsideration requests the following items. And they're just listed. There's 5, Damsel, Empire of Storms, Red Hood, The Infinite Moment of Us, ABC of Equality. The minor card policy created a new teen collection. Today, CIN has a total item count for the new teen collection as of today, 757, 477 were fiction and 280 are nonfiction. In comparison, the total item count for the young adult section is 10,730. And the juvenile and easy sections are 76,000. The teen collection continues to grow. CIN is purchasing new items for this collection every week. Today, CIN has a minor card count of 9,964, which includes 9,532 minor, 425 minor limited, and teen limited 7. The minor limited card option became available to the public July 1st, and the teen limited card January 1st. The teen collection is a shelf location in the CIN catalog. Under advanced search, users can select teen graphic novel, teen large print, teen biography, teen nonfiction, teen fiction, and teen series, and view the entire teen collection based upon their area of interest.
Trustee Blake?
I am very sorry about this. Can you tell me what's a minor card, what's a minor limited card, and what's a teen limited card again, please? For the 199th time.
Do you want me to read from the policy, or do you want, I can have Lindsay's kind of expert in minor cards and she does
Yeah.
the implementation.
That sounds great. What does minor mean? What are these, I know it's on the circulation too. It's what minor limited, and teen limited.
Right, so, minor is open. Hold on, now my brain is freezing. Let me look at the statistics. Okay, so minor cards are for children 18 and younger who have open access to the entire collection.
Oh.
And then minor limited is for ages 0 to 12. And their parent or caregiver has restricted them to material in the children's area only. And then teen limited is for anyone up to age 15. And then they can have access to the children's and the teen collection.
Okay, so we are keeping track of minors who receive full open access.
Yes,
Okay.
that's with the minor.
Okay, that was my confusion. Thank you very much.
Sure.
What is there a card that is restricted to under 18? You didn't say that.
The minor limited is
Yeah.
ages 0 to 12.
Right.
And then teen limited is the, right, and then we have young adult it's under 16. We have young adult, which is 17 and 18-year-old.
But that's not a card.
Right, so that's the reading category.
There isn't a card that limits 18 and under.
That is true.
Was there no plan for that?
I'm sorry, Chair, Trustee Robinson. But to be clear, parents can get their 17-year-old the teen limited, which is 15 and under, or 16 and under 16.
Under 16.
Yeah, so there's a difference. And I would say a good way to say the minor card is a human with a library card that's under 18.
So I'm happy to go on to update the post files in Apple Library. There's no handout. I was just gonna say that I continue to consider both the post files and the Apple Library in an emergency state. We, as defined by potentially causing more harm to the facility or to individuals, the latest update from ICRN is that they are reviewing our claim in legal counsel and anticipate a response back Friday. or with the holiday on Monday, we may not be notified until maybe midweek, Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. We have received 2 quotes that would fulfill the next step in the process, which is removing the contents of the library, and staff are walking through with another contractor or individual that will give us another quote in the next couple of days. So we're hoping that the ICRIM review will be concluded and we will be able to move forward Wednesday or so with a selected vendor to move contents.
And that,
Trustee Hayden?
At the last meeting, I believe a company called MKA was identified as a possible contractor. Is that incorrect? I'm sorry.
It's a construction cost estimator that's been hired by ICRIP and North Idaho Adjuster to give us an estimate of the damage and the repair costs. So they're not a contractor. The contractors that we've been gotten quotes from are Compass and Belfour. And tomorrow we're reviewing, and I won't say their name because they haven't put in a quote, but it is more of a moving company.
Trustee Hayden?
The reason I'm asking that is I'm curious whether these are Idaho companies or not. And I also don't know whether there's an open works requirement or because this is an emergency, we're not bound by that. But I would like to know that at some point, if we're not using an Idaho contractor, that we've excluded that there are no qualified Idaho contractors to do this job. Because this is where people pay their taxes and this is where we like to keep the money. And so I would like to know that if we don't use an Idaho contractor, that there's a justified reason.
So 2 of the contractors have offices and presence that we received in Idaho. The other company, I believe, is in Spokane Valley, but I believe they have facilities in Idaho as well.
Trustee Claus?
I was just gonna ask for clarification. You said you're getting 2 quotes, but you said the first is for removing contents.
That's,
But are both quotes for removing contents? Okay.
yes, at this point, we haven't gotten a full construction estimate. We've gotten 1 construction estimate. I will say that I'm anxious about how much and what claim limits and everything. So I did ask our adjuster a question about how much money I guess adjusters sort of put aside with ICRIM, how much they anticipate the claim could be. It's typically on the higher end, but it allows ICRIM to start budgeting and their process and aspect. So I will say that the Post Falls remediation for repairs was estimated, or set aside amount was $750,000. And for Athol, it was $400,000. So again, it's not in any way written down or exact, it's just a ballpark. But that at least helps me know what field we're in, because we need to wait. We're expecting NK's response next week. And once we get the ICRIT moving forward, then I anticipate the full completion of those estimates or those quotes from those contractors as well.
Trustee Hayden?
So I want to make sure I understand sequentially. So first, we're going to get confirmation of how much money ICRIP is going to cover for both facilities, I'm assuming. And that part of that, let me put it this way, aside from what the insurance company will cover, we need a company, which I guess was MK, that's going to determine what they think this repair should cost, because I would think before, and I don't know this, but before we sign off and agree to what the insurance company says, in conjunction with whatever contractor we might use, we might want to get input from them, because they may see things again at ICRIM or ICRIM's representatives or adjusters, or this MKA company doesn't see. So I just want to make sure, because we could get a number that says, okay, that's $750,000 worth, and when we get all finished, it's $850,000, and we're having to eat that 100,000. So I'm just curious as to sequentially how that is supposed to shake out. That's my question.
I'm not sure, I would love to answer that directly, but I'm not sure that I can. I think the honest answer is that it really, for like Post Falls, which is likely to go over $1 million, it really depends on what our insurance coverage is. If it is 5 million for the facility, then, you know, awarding a contract and moving forward with a contractor, as long as it's under that, I would not have any concerns. If the total amount is $1 million, then I would have some concerns, and we would likely shift the direction of our work as a result of ICRIMP's decision. I would anticipate that if ICRIMP says that it's $1 million per claim total, that library staff would do the majority of packing and moving, that it would extend how much time it takes to remove contents, that we would have to identify specific storage and go through that process and path, hiring a truck and doing that work, versus hiring someone that does that service for us. And so that's that first part of like content removal and the amount for the claim. I can say, and we've received 2 quotes, and I'll just say that they range from, 300,000 plus to over $1 million to remove the contents in Post Falls. So we have quite a wide spread in our quotes so far. And so if our total claim coverage wouldn't cover the moving of the contents, obviously we wouldn't go in that direction. So I think getting to your point of, it depends really based on what the claim coverage is, or whether our construction will go over that amount, and if we will be personally responsible for costs. If ICRIMP maintains a $1 million claim, then I would put us in the ballpark of $500,000, $750,000 of expense from the network for Post Falls alone.
Oh, sorry.
Trustee Plus?
So Director, you said 750 for Post Falls and 400,000 for Apple for remediation. What do you mean by remediation? Is that construction? And so there's a separate number, it sounds like you're working with for the content removal. And then is there yet a third one, which is replacement of items? I think there's 3 things, isn't there?
There's more than that. There's also the cost of what we've incurred so far, where they came and shop backed up all the water, so to speak, like the commercial shop backs, but you know what I mean? And the dehumidifier and the other expenses that have already incurred. But yes, that's sort of the gist of it. We have the cost of the immediate removal of water, and drying and dehumidification. Then we have content removal, and then we have the remediation or repairs, the sort of construction part. In terms of what we don't know, I've said this before, we haven't opened up the walls. We don't know what's going on the studs, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, we won't know the full extent of the damage until we go through that demolition phase. There could be items like mold that we can't plan for. There would need to be hygiene and proper mold remediation brought in to address that issue. Both of these companies that we've gotten quotes for are certified and are capable of doing that. And so, again, we don't know all the details yet. But it really depends on what ICRIMP says is our claim limit in terms of some further discussion.
So we're over time, if you could make your last comment quickly.
I'll try and make it quickly. My concern is if there's any projection that costs are going to exceed what insurance is going to pay for, then I think this board should know what the plan is before any contracts of any sort are signed off. Because I'm sure there are less expensive ways to approach this. I'm not saying I have the answers on it, but materials can be moved across one half of the library possibly. the place could be sheeted off and the work could be done without taking all the materials out of the library and packing them and moving them. I'm sure there are options out there, and so if the insurance company wants to pay for it, then I don't necessarily care, as long as we're not doing anything fraudulent, I really don't care what it costs. But if the potential exists that the taxpayers have to pay for something, then I think this board needs to agree with whatever approach we're gonna take to look for the most cost-effective manner of going about this, because it sounds, again, I don't know what it will take labor and time-wise, but close to $1 million to take some shelving and books out of the way to do construction sounds excessive to me. Again, I've never done that, but there are ways to do that that are probably less expensive. And I'm not saying I have the answers for it, but I think that this board needs to be involved in agreeing with the plan, if the plan is going to cost the taxpayers anything beyond what the insurance company is going to pay. As fast as I can make it, sorry.
Did you want to respond, okay?
Yeah, in a lot of the areas, I agree, not in everything, but absolutely. I don't believe that we could move forward with a contractor without expending funds. If ICRINT finds it's $1 million total per claim for Post Falls, it may be possible to move forward with ATHO within that budget. So just a little clarification there. I think council and I have spoken a little bit about it, and it may, I don't know if he wants to speak about it at all, about the bidding process and about moving forward, but I agree that if the board needs to expend CIN funds or has that reasonable risk, that the board should be included in some of those decisions, for sure.
Okay, so now we will move on to the review and approval of temporary lease section. Want to say that the only storage rental proposal is renting a Meyer property and over in Fern Lane rather than Post Falls, where it'd be more convenient. There's more credence to the shadow board hypothesis that's going around.
What?
All that said, I don't have a problem renting from the Myers if it is the storage size we need at a competitive price, but I don't know. I'd like 2 other quotes to compare it to.
Interesting.
Do we have majority, hold on, we have majority consent to direct the director to give us other adequate storage quotes and contracts and time for us to decide?
Question.
I have a question.
Okay, I'm sorry, who was first?
I think Katie, me, and
Okay, trustee Mike?
I absolutely don't. I think we need to hear from the director about what happened, what we need, why we have it, where it is, and then we can, so I really, after the earlier discussion that we've had, I'm appalled that we are putting adjectives before quotes that are given to us or something like that. And I would really like that. I would like derogatory statements to stop on this board. But I think we need to hear from the director about what's going on. And also, if there's something very inexpensive that is being offered to us, why would we stand in the way?
Trustee Robinson?
so it almost sounded like somebody's asking for a QFR on this, which I find ironic. And possibly, I don't know, but possibly the director has already shot this and came to us with the best choice. And I would like to hear from her about that.
Okay, trustee Foster?
So I saw the lease agreement in the packet, but I didn't get any explanation. I still haven't heard. What is it for? Is it office space? Is it set up under the library?
Right.
Is it just storage or material? If it's just storage, why aren't we looking at the storage facility instead of,
Why don't we let her explain?
yeah, anyway, that's my questions.
Director?
Where to start? I guess let me start with the appreciation for the generosity of this community. I will start by saying that the library has been offered discounted storage space, discounted office and professional space. We've received quite a few donations. One of the most touching ones that we received was a $20 card, $20 in a card saying, I don't have much money, but you guys are in dire situation, please take this. So I would say that the library has been the recipient of a lot of community goodwill and thoughts, and I very much appreciate that. I think first, I would say that this opportunity is about a $75,000 donation to our organization. The cost that was quoted in this includes electricity, which is unusual in commercial spaces. It includes snow removal, which is unusual in commercial spaces. And the lease is for 6 months, which is also incredibly unusual. The library has done some research on a location, on different options. Most commercial spaces are not available right now without a 3-year lease. So again, the fact that this community member and business offered such generosity to us is really something that is amazing and is something that I'm very much appreciative of. This item was added to the agenda because I was not sure if I was going to hear from ICRIP, whether they approved it or not. So to be clear, if ICRIP approves this, then it would not require any board action. This is being brought to the board because of the ICRIP delay is what I'm going to call it. I do not have any commitment from ICRIP at this point. However, I do understand that it could fall under other expenses. The this option would provide both office space as well as storage for all of the materials and furnitures for both Post Falls and Athol. It is within a 10-mile radius of both locations, or approximately in a convenient location. It is, as I said, inclusive of electricity, snow removal, and it is flexible. So they're allowing us to essentially rent month to month. This draft of the lease is what I received initially. I have since sent this to ICRIP to get some additional coverage. One of the advantages of having a space is that rather than offsite storage or have one of these companies store our materials, is that we know the value of our collection and we can ensure with ICRIP the value of the collection in the lease space. So that is a great benefit. Also of great benefit is that we control the humidity and the climate in which the books are being stored versus an outside or maybe heated or some form of climate control that we don't know where they're storing our material. So again, the books are very valuable, and ensuring their proper safeguarding is a priority. So this option would allow, like I said, both displaced workers as well as storage. And it is temporary, and it's at about a $75,000 below market donation to the organization. At this point, it is not final. There's some language regarding insurance, and ICRIP has provided some language, and I provided that to the property manager to see if we can modify the lease. I've sent this to our legal counsel. I'm going to characterize, but I don't think either here I have any concerns as long as we can work through the language relating to insurance. And so I would recommend that the board conditionally approve that we're able to move forward with the lease. As I said, we have one more quote tomorrow, which would include the contractor for contents removal also storing the materials. So one of the quotes that we received would be storing the materials in our location. One of the quotes will likely be storing it in this location. So depending on which direction we go, we may use this lease, we may not. As I said, I believe that it would be covered if ICRIP holds our regular policy limits. I believe this would be covered. I don't know if council has anything to add.
Essentially, the amendments would be adapting a private market commercial real estate lease to a governmental entity tenant. And so it's typical issues we see related to the Tort Claims Act limits, the prohibition of additional insureds related to the gift clause in the Constitution and statute. And there's one tiny little liability provision in it that may not allow the contents to be covered if it was a negligent act on behalf of the landlord that causes the damage. But I don't think we're gonna have any issues amending that and working it through with the property manager. I will say that I did a little bit of a market analysis and I'm looking at grade A office space at $18 to $25 a square foot a year. I don't know if my math's that great, but this looks like it's less than $10 a square foot a year. So I think it would be commercially reasonable for the board to move forward. And I think that the director is asking for maybe a conditional approval subject to working through these concerns that iCrimp and legal has, but also depending on what iCrimp's coverage analysis says, because that may remove the need for the board to specifically authorize a lease of commercial property for the library, and it could move it over to the insurance side as like a temporary storage aspect, and payment would likely come through the insurance company. So that's all I have to add on that.
Sorry, who's first?
I don't know.
Trustee Foss?
So I'm sure the director, you've got something in mind here, but how much space do we, or are you trying to empty the entire Post Falls Library and Athol libraries into this space? Or is this space adequate? Or why can't we use one half of the east side of Post Falls that wasn't damaged to store? Is this really going to solve, is this a solution for our needs if we approve it? Or will there be another one the same size come, because this is only half the size that we need? I'm just looking for a ballpark of, have you analyzed how much floor space you need?
So, like I mentioned, one of the contractors would like to walk the property as well. So, I cannot say emphatically that it may meet everything. I'd like to walk with the contractor. He's the one that's selected. But I have reasonable belief that it's sufficient. The boxes are, this big and stacked high, and since it's a space like that, I believe that we can make it work. You do have in your packet some of the floor plans. I don't necessarily think that we need to use the office. Some of them are workspaces and can, again, floor to ceiling be packed. I think for us, the benefit of being able to ensure the full content value and climate control to our conditions or our standards are why I'm trying to work with different contractors.
Trustee Hannon?
I'm not gonna question the fact that the market value, the lease is showing us a number well below market value, at least based upon what's posted online. I have yet to hear any rationale whatsoever as to why we're moving the offices. I'm assuming the Post Falls offices out of the facility. I did a walkthrough with the board about a month ago, and I didn't note any damage whatsoever anywhere past the entryway, meaning you go in the door, to the right, there's a children's section and there's a collections desk or the staff desk there. There and farther north appear to be where the entire event took place. I didn't see anything from the main entryway. There's a fountain, there are restrooms, there are 2 conference rooms and the office. I don't understand why we're moving anybody out of there. And I also don't understand why we're not open for limited operations. That's not the scope, maybe right here, limited operations, but I have yet to hear. We're worrying about, I'm concerned about the fact that the taxpayers are paying money and are getting 0 services if they live in that area. And I haven't heard anything going on as to what we're doing to provide some kind of temporary offering to the public. But why are we not using those offices? They were unscathed as far as I know. Can someone explain to me why we need to move?
Director?
So I'll first address the statement about no services. Users in the Post Falls area are coming to Hayden, they're coming to Coeur d'Alene, they're coming to Liberty from Liberty Lake. I anticipate in our further circulation and statistics, you're going to see some higher numbers in those libraries. They are receiving our, again, 24/7 ebook, e-audiobook services. So there's quite a bit of services that people are being provided. It is not no services. One of the questions about offices and services. So I will say that staff have been reviewing how to best utilize the access of Post Falls that was not damaged. If you know where the director's office and the assistant director's office, those were previously conference rooms and public facing rooms before they became staff offices. And so by removing the two staff from those locations, it is possible to turn them into perhaps computers or tables for Wi-Fi access, both services that are very much missing at this point. And so in terms of offices and damage, so I don't think that the trustee noticed, I guess, on the tour that the communications manager's office was damaged. The workroom had water penetration, and so that entire workroom in Post Falls is going to be recarpeted. And so it will be part of the demolition process. I'm not recommending that staff work in a construction site during the demolition. I do anticipate that staff will be removed and then we'll be able to move back. And that may be prior to the 6 months, but I think that the Post Falls is headquarters essentially. And so other staff that were impacted were the business manager, the administrative assistant, the IT director, the facility director, the facility manager, the communications director, so as well as the assistant director and the director. So quite a few staff besides just those focused on Post Falls were impacted. And yes, the entire workroom is going to be a demolition site and have painting and drywall demolition. So, and it may be a better use of our current offices for public service when the square footage is very at a premium in a very small sort of interim or temporary location. So I think it's actually quite a bit of thought and planning to strategically benefit the public and to, again, create a safe space for our materials. So
I'm sorry, who was next?
Well, I already spoke, I guess, so
Okay.
I should have something else.
I'd like to say that on our tour, it was pointed out that every wall that had blue tape on it was going to have to be cut, right, and looked at in terms of, and I don't know if people noticed how many walls had blue tape on them. They were small pieces of tape and they were all over. The second thing is that when we did a huge construction project quite a bit ago, and we remodeled, quote unquote, Hayden, the Hayden Library, it was attempted to have services while construction was going on, and it was a nightmare. And the conclusion was, at that point in time, because when construction happens, you move books here, then you have to move them someplace else. It's a continual movement process. It's not a static, it sounds very easy, but none of us actually have ever done it. It seems to me far more streamlined to move things out, let it get done and move them back in. And then you're not moving stuff all around. And how are you supposed to direct the public? So one day biography's over here, the next day it's in another room. It sounds like a nightmare.
Director?
I just wanted to bring up one point I'd forgotten to mention, and the trustee reminded me, and that is that the question about whether the books can remain on site or materials can remain on site is essentially judgment and experience. And when I was in Lewiston, we had a situation where we had materials on the shelf and then an activity happened and the air conditioning unit wasn't turned off and the dust got pulled and thrown, all the drywall dust on the collection. And so in order to rectify that situation, each book had to be individually wiped down, the front, the spine, the back, the individual pages, to get this very fine gritty dust off of the books. It took an incredible amount of time. So we do have one proposal that recommends that the items be left left in the location. There's a proposal to wrap them in moving materials and then that kind of plastic wrap, that kind of seal them in that silly wrap or whatever. But I will say that is the more expensive option. The option that the other quote recommended and staff have experienced moving in this manner, and essentially the materials cannot stay in that environment. It is such a fine and gritty material, and when it attaches to books, it's almost impossible. It's not just like a Swiffer or a dusting kind of approach to get it off. It really does. It does require a cloth and manually removing it, which can also be very time consuming and expensive to do that. And so yes, it is possible to leave materials there, and that was the more expensive option. And so again, it is going to come down to at some point cost and protection of our materials, which are my main priorities.
Okay, so our time is up for this. So we will now go on break.
So are you going to approve it?
Ellen's made a motion.
All right, I move that we conditionally approve this lease agreement.
It has been moved that we conditionally approve this lease agreement.
Is it for discussion now? Like this for
All right,
discussion?
Trustee Foss.
So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What's the conditional approval? You either approve it or you don't. So what's the conditions?
If we don't need it,
It would be conditional, in my opinion, it would be conditional on two things. Sufficient modification of the lease to be compliant with ICRIP and legal counsel. And then conditional in terms of this is the direction that we choose to go in with a contractor that wants us to secure the materials.
Trustee Henley.
Part of what the director said, I think it sounded as if the project is morphed from restoration to a renovation project here.
No.
And I'm well aware of the fact that the workroom behind the collection desk was, got wet and flooded into the carpet in there. But the facility does not appear to have been affected at all from the fountain and restrooms all the way to the left as you walk in the door there. And I cannot possibly sign off on this because I'm not convinced yet that there's a need to move the offices out. And so it may, in my opinion, I would need another field trip and be over there and show me exactly why. I've been through multiple, and I manage them renovations. No, I'm not taking ownership of this project, but the building functions while the renovations went on. And I still don't understand why books can't be shifted down to the to the conference rooms, to maybe put them into the youth area. And then certain phase gets done and they move them back instead of taking them all off site. But I don't understand the scope of this project now. And I also don't understand the comment, which may be accurate, but we don't need the board's permission if ICRM's going to pay. I don't understand. So if it's an insurance thing and insurance pays, so then is there usually a contract created and is that signed off locally, or is the insurance company sign it? I don't know. But I'm not prepared to sign off on this lease at all. And a lease, I'm not going to knock the lease. The lease is probably 40% of the going rate out there from what I saw online. So it's not the price of the lease, it's a necessity to move to Coeur d'Alene. And I still don't understand why we're not offering limited operations at the post falls site. People can drop books off and pick them up, and a staff member can still be there while we have offices and restrooms, air conditioning and heating, you name it. So I'm not comfortable with this at all. So my vote will be a no when we get to that stage right now, because I have a lack of information.
Assistant Director?
At our last meeting, there was great emphasis on having a plan to offer operations right now and get the libraries back open a little bit. And so if you're talking about the foyer, the workroom, the large meeting room, and then the director and assistant director offices, that's the exact space where this little mini library would go. So we need room where people can check books in and out. We need a little computer lab and free Wi-Fi. We need shelves that we can put books for people to browse in a mini collection. You can only fit that in certain places. And so we can't have library staff working in that same place and maintaining their offices while also creating this new mini library service at Post Falls. You can't serve double duty in that space. So do you want us to open up a mini library in Post Falls, or do you want us to have our administrative offices there? That's kind of the choice that the board needs to make.
Sure. Trustee Robinson?
How I see this, if we approve this lease, is since things are still up in the air and fluid, us saying, yes, you can lease this building if that is what you need to do tomorrow or the next day or the day after that, because obviously they're not even 100% sure right now what direction they're going in. I 100% agree with the assistant director where if you want a little mini library, which would be a great idea, which I'm positive they want as well, you can't have both. You can't have every book from the Post Falls Library put into that big room. It just wouldn't fit. So I see giving the director the okay to take this temporary lease if she sees that that was the right direction to go in. She already has the okay that she can do it. She's not saying right this second, I'm going to sign this because that's what I know. She just needs to know it's okay if she does sign it, if that's the direction the library needs to go in to possibly have a little mini library set up. That's how I see it.
Trustee Hayden?
I'm not proposing shelving set up over there for patrons to come in and peruse the shelves. People can order materials through the CIN. Staff can be employed to ferry those books from other libraries, including here in Hayden, over. There's a Twice Told Tales area that I don't believe was damaged at all. That's also, I believe, in the unscathed area. So I'm not asking for or suggesting that any books be put there that aren't ordered. So people can order online. The books can be put inside there in the Twice Told Tales area. It looked it's like a store. It's got shelves, got places to put the materials. And a patron comes in the door and says, hi, I ordered a book. And they can pick the book up and there's a staff member there to check it out with a computer. Doesn't need 6 computers. And people can drop their books off. And we'll call it, we're employing our staff to ferry books back and forth with a courier. That area looks to me like it wasn't affected at all. They don't need to, there's no need to go into the construction zone. It's not in.
Is this getting into operational?
Yes, very
Because
much.
it sounds to me like
Very.
a trustee is trying to micromanage.
Point of order means that someone's broken Robert's rules.
Well, how can I get it across that trustees do not micromanage the running of the library?
You could be next and state it then.
We're making a decision on potentially expending funds, which is fully in line with the duties and responsibilities of the Board of Trustees, of which I'm a member. And so I consider that fully within the scope of this conversation. The facility, and the reason I bring that up is because I would like staff on site. If all the staff goes over to Coeur d'Alene, there is a limited ability then to do this. But whether it's limited operations or whether it's the office staff remaining there, I have yet to be convinced that there's a need, and it has not been articulated in my opinion, and therefore I can't support this, even though it's a bargain probably in terms of the dollars amount. But boxing up books, move them over there, moving staff over there for an unknown need, I can't say yes.
Trustee Fox?
I just simply want to say on this motion, I don't think it's a go for me just because I don't like the term conditional on it. And I don't think we know enough about the need, and I don't think we have a plan of how this is going to fit in on the plan. I'd rather have another meeting when a plan is figured out. Present us the plan. And I don't know why we can't discuss what the plan is when it comes up. So that's my view.
Trustee Lang?
Hearing what the plan is great, but telling the staff what the plan is what I'm objecting to. That is absolutely operational. That is what the staff is planning to do. And I just want to reiterate, that is not our job. Absolutely not our job. If we give responsibility to the staff to make a decision about what to do, because they can enter into the lease if they find that works, that's great. I'd like to hear from the director.
Director?
I just want to be clear about authority and why this came to the board and my comment about ICRN paying for it or me signing for it. So this lease falls within the authority that the board had given me in the financial management policy. It's under $50,000. It's temporary. It's emergency. So I can sign this lease. So I want to make that clear. I also want to make it clear that ICRN will likely be paying for this, or until when I notified the board of the recent change in review, ICRN was going to be the authority that was going to approve the financials. So I don't want any confusion about if this board doesn't vote for this, and then I turn around and execute my authority and sign this lease with the appropriateness it is. I wanted to bring transparency to the board. I want to, again, maintain this as an operational decision, and this is under emergency circumstances, both of which continue to affirm my authority. And I know council has reviewed this a little bit as well. Essentially, this is storage. Essentially, we have a line item. Essentially, this is for a contract under $50,000. So I was, as a courtesy, bringing this to the board's attention, also as a means of providing information on the directions we may go. But I want to make it clear that even if the board votes on this, that does not prevent me from moving forward and executing my authority in this manner.
So it sounded like, this might be a good deal. It's just, it would have been nice to have something to compare it with.
So I will say we contacted Tatter Industries, which is in Post Falls. We were looking at them for both and temporary library location, so open to the public, as well as any real estate they had in the area. They would not consider anything less than a 3-year lease. We have reviewed some costs for storage units. It's very difficult to find a storage unit that has both heating and air conditioning in this area that isn't also accessible to the outside, so that the humidity would be in the appropriate range. And so we have done quite a bit of exploration in this issue already. And again, we have one more quote tomorrow, and we'll review with that quote what their storage facility and what their ability to offer us is, and that is an option. But if it does not meet our needs, then we will likely move forward with this option.
Okay, so we are way over. If there's not objection, it has been moved that we conditionally approve this lease agreement. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Right.
No,
Okay, 2 ayes and 2 noes, the motion fails. So the board has not conditionally approved this lease agreement, and it is now time for break.
sure.
Yes,
Just as a follow-up, can we please get a plan, maybe email to us instead of a meeting, but this is what it looks like, a summary plan of how we're gonna go forward, and Athol and Post Falls will all fit into this space, what's needed, and this is what we're gonna do with Post Falls, and I don't know what that plan is right now.
It's very dependent on ICRN's decision. And I would set as an expectation for the board that if ICRN makes that decision and it's not what I would consider in our favor, that this board will likely need to meet and discuss maybe an executive session with council, our steps in moving forward. So I guess what I'll say is that if our limits remain, as we would like them to be, then once a contractor is awarded, I do not mind sending the board the contractor's estimates, so you can see the detail or see the scope of it. And I do not mind communicating, the final lease with the board that is signed if this is the direction it goes or whatever direction it goes. So just in terms of, I anticipate another meeting if it does not go in our favor, just for the board's awareness.
Okay, so we will now go on break for 15 minutes. All right, we're now back from break. We will move to our discussion of motion requiring collection reports. Legal opinion if it makes CLN more vulnerable. So council does requiring the collection reports that we requested make CLN more legally vulnerable? And if so, is it negligible or substantial?
Okay, so the request is for a report of all overdrive digital ebooks, audio and physical books purchased. Reports sorted by CIN system data element entitled audience, preschool, primary, juvenile, pre-adolescent, adolescent, and adult. There are two separate processes that the library would have to conduct, one related to the consortia's material, the overdrive and e-materials. That is going to be a report that would have to come from them, so we could request that report. The group that manages that every month then would grant or deny permission to create the report. And our staff is only partly responsible, along with CDA library and other libraries who work in collaboration to create that overdrive report. And it's likely at most monthly for ebooks and e-audios. The second type of categorical report that would be created pursuant to this request would be materials that are owned and stored by CLN. And a report would not include patron information. And so we wouldn't have to restrict that metadata. The audience might not be exactly the audience types it's cataloged in, and then it would take likely at least 2 hours of collection development librarian time to create that one report and export it. The records would not otherwise exist unless we create the report, the second type of report, and so the historical data would be lost. If we do create that report, one way a plaintiff could use that for legal liability against the library is to show a trend in a change of purchasing decisions that were made before or after a policy. And so if we collect that historical information, they could compare that with other libraries and show a discrepancy on the percentage of a type of book that we either do or do not purchase. And so if I was a plaintiff, that's the way I would use it. I would take that historical data we create, and then I would compare it to other libraries. And if we have less of a certain category of book, then I would go find, a comment that a trustee made and try and characterize it as having animus towards a particular viewpoint to bring a viewpoint discrimination claim. If a lawsuit occurred and then we were in the discovery phase, they would ask for this information. We would then likely create this same type of report and provide it to them. However, it would be for that month only. My understanding from conversations with staff is that you can't create that historical report. If it's not created at the time, it's kind of lost. Although the data is in the system, unless we extrapolate it and compile it and memorialize it, it wouldn't otherwise exist. So I guess the short answer is it depends. Could it lead to additional liability? Yes. It's creating a record that wouldn't otherwise exist. This record could be used, though, to alleviate liability. So let's say that a person who makes a challenge based upon a certain viewpoint, we could come and show data that proves that we actually purchase more books or we purchase more books comparatively to other libraries. And so the way this is written, it's a very broad question. So the best I can give you is, and it depends, but it does create data that wouldn't otherwise exist. Chronological and historical data related to book purchases.
Okay, Trustee Fox?
So, counsel, you were referring to give you types of books. I don't think our reports would classify what types of books and what
They have
subject
a
matter.
whole list of types.
Well, the motion stated that.
It was just to buy new, it was just the books that were bought in the last month.
I went back to the last meeting and listened to Mr. Hanley's comments, and it did request a report sorted by a data element entitled audience. And then he suggested preschool, primary, juvenile, pre-adolescent, adolescent, and adult. So I was just taking that verbatim, but yeah.
But that's not saying some kind of, whether it's a cult or whether it's,
No,
sexually explicit or anything. It's just saying what age group it's for. So that's all we have. So I don't think they could use that to do anything against us.
Trustee Robinson?
So I'm not sure what the use of it is, and I'm not trying to be combative. I would like to know what the reason is, if you're not looking at what type of books they are, or you're looking at the age range of the books in. I guess I really would like to know what this list would be for. And if somebody could enlighten me, I could have a better decision-making process.
Trustee Hanley?
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but this item on the agenda was to ask legal's opinion of the risks involved in having this report produced, not for me or anyone else to justify the report and this particular line item on the agenda.
I would just say, and council can address this, but motivation is a key factor in litigation. And so he mentioned already that previous trustee comments will be reviewed if it was litigated. So I think it is relevant.
Was the attorney going to talk?
Okay.
I defer to the trustee if they're.
No, that's okay. I'm ready.
Okay. Well, we also have this to compare to the current material selection policy, which still refers to the Library Bill of Rights and the American Library Association information. And under our current policy, the selection criteria for a public library considers a range of criteria and selection, and they create a collection that serves the community and makes the best use of their resources. So there could be a financial argument. There are some general criteria for selection that apply, but each organization determines the relative importance of the criteria for their community. General, content specific, or special to particular collections. Those considerations serves as guiding factors in making decisions how to best invest resources to maximize the impact of the library's collection. The criteria for selection of materials should also depend on the goals and missions of that particular library system. There's some information related to recommended public library reviewing sources that we could use to allocate those decisions. The governing body of the institution is technically legally responsible for the resources in the library, but it delegates that authority to the director, who also delegates and guides that to staff, material selection, collection staff. It's simply a centralized process. And then a lot of people contribute to that process, and they recommend sources for the library in an advisory capacity. And the policy should clearly state the responsibility for coordinating and making final decisions rests with the library professional staff. And then the material selection policy states the responsibility for the selection ultimately rests with the director, but the board guides the selection policy through the process. And it's based upon library staff, on the mission statement, accepted goals, priorities, published reviews, recommendations from library users, availability of materials at other libraries, items in relation to existing collection, use analysis, space, price, and staff judgment and expertise. And so one argument could be that having this list would be a way to analyze it in terms of limited financial resources. But the other side of it is, if we have the data, we could argue that a reduction in certain purchasing decisions is reflective of a viewpoint-based discrimination, which would be illegal under the Constitution if it was, say, motivated by a political or a primarily religious perspective. If that adds context to your question, Trustee Robinson.
Response?
So the library would not be saying what kind of books we're buying, but if the book list is available, what was purchased for the month, someone else in the public could look at how they want to categorize those books. That once all they need is the title. And I think it's valuable for the public and certainly for the trustees to know what's being bought. I would still like a compliance statement in our material selection policy, but that's really what this is, showing somebody can, maybe not the trustees individually, but we have a record of what's being bought. And that's the justification of it.
Go ahead. Okay, it is, everything is up for that portion, so now we will move on to discussion on receiving legal advice regarding public policies, review of when and how legal can provide advice, including in writing, in a public meeting, or in an executive session. We have moved on from that last section?
Yeah.
Okay, so. Okay, go ahead.
I was the one that asked for the agenda item.
Okay,
That's what I was
okay.
saying. So I've put together a little summary that I'll just pass around. The reason I put it up on the screen also is legal advice is attorney-client confidential advice. And in the case that we're talking about, it's for policy changes. The legal advice is given to the trustees on what we're voting on. It's not for public consumption. But the trustees should be able to consider the advice privately when making their decisions on changes or how they're going to vote on a policy. Legal counsel is not a trustee. He doesn't vote on, doesn't vote and make decisions like the board does. Ultimately, the trustees take the legal advice into consideration when making their own decision. The public should not have access to what advice was given because it might say things like, if you do this, this might happen, or if you do that, this other might happen. And it can be taken out of context. I don't see why. Anyway, it's not for the public, it's for the trustees to use in making their decisions. So I was going to propose, and legal counsel can tell me if these three options are even possible. The first and preferable thing would be to enter into executive session so legal counsel could explain his advice orally to the trustees, assuming this is a reason that we can enter into executive session. Anything discussed in the executive session would not be allowed to be discussed outside. If we can't go into executive session, then I think we could request legal counsel to distribute advice in a written statement. And those statements would be expected to be kept private and they could be given at the meeting. And a third way he could possibly do this, explain, is he could have a question and answer session by CLN email. It seems like if it's limited to just legal advice, we could get questions asked and get the legal advice by email before we have the meeting. But it would be email at CLN, email only to trustees. So those are my ideas. I guess I'm open to discussion. And I just do not think we should be having meetings anymore where legal counsel just tells us and the public what his advice is.
Trustee Blake?
So there is this whole open meeting law that we are required to follow, and it's very clear. And one of the reasons that Idaho has established an open meeting law is that so that absolutely most of what goes on in a public entity like ours, a governmental entity, is open and transparent to the public. We all have been given the Idaho Open Meeting Law Manual. There's only one reason in terms of meetings there's only one way in terms of meetings that we can speak privately. Only one way that we can speak privately, and that is an executive session. And executive session lists very clearly the reasons we can go into it. Talking about policy, even receiving advice in terms of this is not legal, this, is not necessarily covered under an executive session. That is the only way we can discuss things privately, is an executive session, and the list is right here of what we can do. The second thing is that if you do anything written, that is also made available to the public, available through a public records request. All emails between trustees, all of that. The point of the open meeting law is to make governmental decisions, boards, transparent to the public. And what you are suggesting is that we start backing off from that kind of transparency. I think that there are times if we are, if we are being threatened with a lawsuit, certainly then we go into executive session. But discussing whether a policy is legal or not, or even writing it, I am absolutely not certain that that isn't a discussion that is required to be transparent to the public.
Mr. Robinson? Is this something that our attorney could actually speak to, since it's a legal matter? Would like to.
Well, certainly trustee Blank's concerns are well received, and so are trustee Plass's concerns. I think it's harder to give you an answer related to an open meeting law violation when receiving the advice of an attorney. The statute certainly says even the receipt of information upon a matter that it's going to be before the board for decision constitutes deliberation. Whether or not the emails would be disclosable under the public records request isn't as clear. They would be a public record, but there is a statute 3205, I believe it is, that has been upheld in court before to exempt those types of communications. But there's a limit to the confidentiality provisions for government agencies as opposed to private conduct. And so I would characterize it as less protection, confidentiality protection for public attorney advice. And so I don't know if I'm comfortable to give you an oral statement on 1, 2, or 3 if it's permissible, but certainly I can increase the amount of written communication if the board would request that, or provide memos that could be public record and shared with the public. But I think the amount of my participation in a meeting is subject to the pleasure of the board. So I wouldn't object to whatever the board decides to do, so.
Trustee Robinson? I guess to be more specific, when it comes to crafting policies, the trustees deciding on policies, does the attorney think that his advice should be given in private, or should it be given in public for a policy for the library?
I guess that would depend on if we reasonably anticipate litigation, or if there's a personnel matter involved, or if there's privacy interests at stake.
No, a policy. I'm talking about just like, say, it's on here.
I would think
It's a
that
selection policy.
I would think that if I rendered an opinion related to a policy, it would eventually be public, if not right away. So if I responded in a written memo, then it would likely be disclosed at some point, if not immediately.
Trustee Blank?
So what you're saying is that wouldn't, an opinion on whether the policy is legal or not is not necessarily covered in executive session.
As a public employee, I have really spent years of disclosing and transparency. And so I'm concerned that the only reason that was really offered was that it could be taken out of context. So I think whenever possible, the board should lean into disclosing as much information to the board, to the public, And with the exception of the items that we kind of articulated, litigation, insurance claims, personnel matters, things like that. And so I would like to hear more specific reason why policies and just I guess a reservation, it hasn't happened that it's been taken out of context to my knowledge. And so I don't know that basing a decision on that and I guess potential in the future is really a basis.
So this is being misconstrued about giving whether a policy is, the change is illegal or not. If it's illegal, if we're doing something that's illegal, the attorney certainly should tell us that if you put that sentence in there, it is illegal. You can be prosecuted. But in most everything we're dealing with, it may go to litigation. It may be that the most recent court cases have leaned one way, but those court cases get appealed and the judge in the next court says it's okay. So it's not really a question of what is legal that we're asking about. Ultimately, the trustees have to make the decision that the legal counsel is not a trustee. He can't tell us what to decide. I certainly would expect him to tell us if there is something illegal that we're going to do, that we're going to get prosecuted if we do it. But in most of these cases, it's just one court decides the first time and then on appeal, another court may decide differently. So it isn't, and it depends on which judge you get too. So it isn't legal or not legal that I'm asking. I'm concerned that we may have a member of the media out here that hears our attorney say X, Y, Z if you do A, and ABC if you do number 2 or something. And they just go write in the paper that we did this and the attorney said, don't do that, or the attorney had said, this is going to happen to you if you do X, Y, Z. So they shouldn't know that kind of detail. It's attorney-client confidential. I still say this has, when the attorney is advising the trustees, it's confidential. And I don't want the public going and picking and choosing the things they hear and saying, writing an article or saying the things they want. That is why I believe it should be confidential.
I just want to make sure the language is clear because I heard it go gray there a little bit. Legal services protects the entity. He does not represent trustees, if that makes sense. He does not just give legal advice to trustees. So I think, that's an important point.
Mr. Blank? This that was just described seems to me absolutely a consideration of breaking the law. Is what was just described that we keep private from the public and from the media is absolutely not on the list of anything that we can talk about in executive session. If we don't want it to be misconstrued, then we need to say it in a way that cannot be misconstrued. It's sort of breathtaking what just transpired. This is a trustee asking that we have way less transparency than the public is legally allowed.
I would just say I agree with the trustee that just spoke. I think that is my interpretation of the open meeting law as well.
I guess I'm interpreting this request to not necessarily require that I never provide advice in public, but that it's less verbal and more written, maybe. So it's not an immediate response. That's my interpretation, but maybe I'm misinterpreting that. And so there would be I guess a delay. So we vote and say, we want this question answered, and it comes to me, and then I provide an emailed response, or I read a statement into the record the next meeting. I don't know, maybe that's incorrect, but that would be less problematic than only conducting advice through emails to all of the trustees. that's closer to getting into issues.
I just wanted to describe what my previous experience is and how I typically see it done. I'm used to policies again being drafted by staff and presented to the board, edits being made, and then again, the director sending the revised draft to legal counsel. Legal counsel can then either email me back and I distribute that to the entire board, or if there's a lot of concerns, they can come and give a presentation if it requires more information. I would say that, again, the current contract with legal counsel puts the chair of the board as the primary communication or contact for legal counsel, which I think is problematic and continues to be problematic. But again, I believe that the most appropriate manner is for policies moving forward is for staff to draft them, to present them to the board for edits and feedback, changes made, and then it goes to legal counsel, and then that information is sent back to the board. Typically, it will be a simple response back, like the council has no concerns, or the council would like this one word changed to one of these words instead, or it's usually, there's one sentence that because of some case law, they would prefer we remove, or it's usually very simplistic in what the direction is. And so I would say that is a much more cost-effective method of using legal counsel as well. So I would be a proponent of a revised process in terms of that.
Okay, I guess we have time for one more comment.
Okay, wait a second. He's just commented.
So you haven't commented yet this?
You did.
I have commented, yes, but he has since then. So
How many comments have you made?
I have no idea. That's what I've asked you to keep track of.
I'll be great.
I would be gracious.
Yeah, that would be good.
We can't be the only board that's ever had to deal with highly controversial issues in the country, legal issues. These policies are not something simple to just go give the staff and get a quick answer. The trustees have the obligation to do the policies, and that's what we're doing, to write them. And I do not think that we need to have a discussion in front of everybody about the legal advice. And I'm just asking that it be done in writing from now on.
Can I just make a comment?
That concludes that section.
I really would like
I
to
know,
make.
but I already said there was only gonna be one more comment.
You
So-
advertised him.
Yeah, I really could.
Sure.
Can I just make a comment?
If it's super quick.
It is going to be super quick. That does not mean that the public, if we put it in writing, we also have public records requests. It is still able to be, the public is still able to ask for it, and it still follows the laws on what can be private. I am appalled by the fact that this board is talking about doing things in secret from the public.
Okay, that concludes that section, and now we are on to discussion of material selection and acquisition policy, withdrawal and reconsideration policy. So at our last meeting, right before we moved on, see, family had said, this policy pertains only to the selection and acquisition of let's see, some newly acquired books, or maybe that's for the section.
Real fast.
The promises.
Trustee Hanna?
Yeah, we've been working obviously on this material selection policy for many months. Then at the February 1st meeting, the library director provided the board with a staffed draft. And according to what we were told, or it was written, I forget which, the version utilized feedback from trustees, the public, and legal counsel. I think we agreed, I think the board did, that we didn't wish to go with the 3 different policies mixed into one. I think we already agreed that no, we're not going to do that, because I do find the three different policies mutually exclusive, meaning book selections or acquisitions for buying materials. The withdrawal policy is a different animal, and the minor cards or card policy is different as well, and we never addressed the card one yet. What I did, and trying to be receptive and listening to what staff provided, I'm working on, again, it's not the board's not opposed to it. I'm working on trying to mesh together or integrate what the board has so far regarding book selections and what the staff provided to the board. And I think I'll call it a bit of a hybrid. I don't want to say it's the Hanley version 3.0, but anyway, so I was going to suggest, and so it seemed to be very little friction or differences regarding the book withdrawal policy, because I think this line item on the agenda covers all three. Double check. There was a lot of friction or difference between the staff version and what the board had. Approved by the board, it's pending actual implementation until we get the selection policy down, because we need to launch both of those simultaneously. So I'm suggesting that we do listen and try and take into consideration what was given to us by staff. And I think if we mix between what staff provided and what the board has so far, I think we can come up with a pretty decent product and a very effective one as well. So I'm just suggesting maybe we go ahead and focus on the withdrawal policy, which is within the scope of the line item on the agenda right now, because I don't think there are a lot of differences between, again, staff and board.
Trustee Claus?
I'm opposed to doing that. All I gave the policy, I updated it for the selection and acquisition, what we've done. I didn't do anything with the withdrawal. And that one I'm not prepared to do. I don't know that I care to add other sections about the minor cards into the selection. I missed your opening statement on where we were, where you thought we were with this policy, but I would like to see if just the last couple things we can clean up. I've got lined out items here. I've got things in square brackets. I don't know that we decided on these. Let's clean up these edits and make sure that we've agreed on these things before. Where did you, Chair, where did you suggest we were?
I actually don't think that I have. Yeah. The second part of the withdrawal and reconsideration policy.
Which one?
No, I mean on this one, I would like to stay with material selection. That's first on the list. I don't have the other one. I didn't make a copy of it. But let's please clean up these unknown changes here before we move on to something else.
Okay, I believe that we were at, on the materials selection and acquisition policy, we were at objective and scope of policy, but we've already looped back through it.
What?
And so I
What's the right
Excuse me,
here?
the
Oh.
back and forth, you stopped this a long time ago and it's creeping back in.
okay, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah,
notice.
you're the one that said we couldn't do the back and forth. And it's been creeping in big time.
Okay.
For the last few meetings.
I apologize, I didn't see, so.
Well, it doesn't matter if you see him or not. You said we couldn't do the back and forth. You state your concern and then it goes to the next person. You didn't let me do that with the attorney several meetings in a row, in fact.
Okay,
So can I please
apologize,
have-
I did not see you, and yes, I've already called.
Thank you. Are we working off the table packet draft 2/14/24?
That's the one I had from the last.
Okay, I'm not asking you.
Anyone can answer.
I'm asking the chair. Oh, really? Anybody can answer? Excellent.
Well, it
I'll keep that in mind.
okay, I'm answering
I'm gonna
right
keep
now.
that in mind.
Well, no, I mean, it doesn't,
Are we working off the draft 2/14/24? And I do not have any other, I don't have the withdrawal or the reconsideration policy in my packet.
yeah, they,
Kind of answer. Okay.
wasn't put in there for some
Okay, are
reason.
we working
So,
on
yes,
those
the
two 1424?
Trustee Ham.
Yes, if it makes it clearer, I do believe after looking at the one that was given out as part of the packet, the 2/14/24, all of the changes that the board discussed were covered in there. So I have scribble marks all over mine from the meeting, and it appears that all of the edits did get incorporated into this version that was passed out for this meeting. No? I don't.
Okay.
What about in the square brackets? Those were things I don't think we decided on. So you're saying that we should be able to take the strikeout out right now? I can do that, but I don't know about the square brackets.
Nice.
I don't remember. I think that's why it's good to have the secretary of the board keep track of the changes.
Well, that's where it's on the board for all of us to look at and decide.
Yeah, I can't read that up there. It's too small of a screen. Yeah, I think even with my glasses, I looked a little bit ago and I couldn't read it.
A point of order, and again, I suck at these, so maybe this is the wrong type of point of order. I don't look at this. I don't even consider this. I'm not gonna keep turning my head around and seeing what a trustee is doing behind my back on a screen. Chair just mentioned that she doesn't look at it. We're having problems getting stuff in our packet that's up to date because the staff isn't providing it because they have no clue what the latest draft from the trustee is. We have got to be better, is what we have to be. We have to be better. This is not working. That's not working. And there's got to be control on this board.
Yeah, I had previously thought that it was the secretary's duty to keep track of these things and make sure that we got them in our packet, but I've been told that that is not the case. So we just do the best we can. I think your hand was, well, actually, she hasn't spoken yet. So,
Exactly.
Trustee Blank.
I would like to say that the way this has been in the past is that the staff brings us a draft and then we make those changes and we give it back to staff. That has been totally confusing because we have had two trustees who independently, without even asking the full board if that works for us, make changes and bring them and present them. And then how is the director supposed, and then it gets blamed. And I'm so tired of it getting blamed. The responsibility is this board. We have confused the process. And the staff has not. We have not. The trustees keep changing it, bringing new drafts and don't include. And there was a very derogatory comment made about the staff that we don't want just their little ideas. When they are the actual people who know how to build a very legal policy. Lastly, I would like to know, has this policy been looked at in any way? Has it been vetted for the constitutional deficiencies yet?
Trustee Laws?
I have a question. I asked a question.
I know, but this next person.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
And this is just in part reference to the requirement. I need to be clear that it is part of the open meeting that information that the board is deliberating on is available to the public. And so I was uncomfortable posting this agenda without the draft policy. I'm uncomfortable that we have withdrawal and reconsideration policy without that on there. So to the point of what we need to do better, we need to be legally compliant, and I'm not sure that we were fully in this case. I have since put this draft on the library's website. It is in the board packet. The public does have access to it. But I think this back and forth and lack of clarity is concerning because we are failing our obligation to open meeting law.
Has this been vetted by the
Trustee
attorney.
Fox has his hand up next.
I had a question. I asked you a question. Has this policy been vetted by the attorney?
So we have a point of order on the table related to the use of the screen. And so subsidiary motions need to come after, including whether it should be included in the board packet or not. So if it's a violation of the board rules that we're using the screen, the chair should rule, and then we can move on. Because
Okay.
we're conflating too many issues in there. And so was it a prior rule of the board to not use the screen behind trustee Robinson? I know we had discussed it. I don't recall what the board resolved on that. But if it's a board rule and we continue to use it, it would be violation of the board. The chair could rule it. She could overrule it. It could be appealed by 2 trustees. But I would prefer if we handle the point of order before we move on to questions and motions related to the board vote.
Point of order. We have never voted on this.
Okay,
We do not have anything in the bylaws saying that we cannot use this. We don't have anything in the bylaws saying how we do it. I propose that we make a policy to say we do it this way, so it's more live and it happens quicker. But I think the chair suggested we can just change the way we do things. But maybe we do need a bylaw change, I don't know. But I think this should be done this way, and we should just learn the old way was very slow. It was like a 2-month loop to get through a change.
I'm not sure that we need a policy on that. This little screen doesn't seem to work out very well. Anyway, I don't think that it's against the bylaws to use the screen, but it's, this one in particular is too small to see. Sorry, who was next?
I haven't spoken yet.
Okay, great. Trustee Hammond?
It's just very short. I think that the screen has its place. I'm not sure as to who owns what goes on the screen. I don't know if staff should be using the screen instead of a trustee, but I think that definitely when it comes to trying to wordsmith a document, there's got to be a lot of gain by everybody seeing, instead of everybody having, again, a pencil differences on their own copies, and then we wait a month to see what comes back from the staff at the next meeting. I'm not saying I have an answer for this particular policy right now and resolve it at the moment. And I really don't think I think that bylaws are very high level. I don't know whether it would be appropriate to talk about using a screen or not at that level, but in any case, I'm in favor of the screen frequently for lots of policy work because wordsmithing is difficult. We start changing sentences around, so I don't have an answer.
Trustee Blank?
What I'm concerned about is that there is one trustee who's got this the ability to use the screen or has decided to use the screen. It has not been given to every single trustee. So I should be able to bring all sorts of screen stuff and put it up there whenever I want to. I think that way better would be to ask the staff to give us a handout to look at, each in front of us. And if we coordinate with staff, we could actually be a lot more efficient.
Okay, we could have majority consent to assign one person to do it, since if we had everyone doing it, that obviously is going to be a disaster. So do we have majority consent to have trustee Kloss do this since he's got the setup?
No, I know.
Okay, so yes and yes, verbal is good,
Well,
Yes.
or
I don't know what we're committing to, meaning is what trustee Foss puts up on the screen the answer, or is the one that staff takes notes over there? Is that what we agree to? I don't know. So I see that as a good tool and we're working together, but maybe what goes up on the screen can be also being jotted down by staff as we wordsmith something, but the staff's version should be the version, I think. Otherwise, we're gonna have two different things going on here. So
okay.
I don't know what the question was now.
Yeah, I was told that staff is not taking notes on these things.
Wait.
Carter?
To be clear, what I stated was that that the secretary has historically done that, but with this policy, it came in as a draft from different trustees. And because the timeline that was realistic for me to complete the work didn't fall within the board's desire, they then independently redrafted and sent out for legal review or for other purpose for the next meeting. I'm not saying that I cannot do it. What I'm saying is that all direction to the library director needs to come from the majority of the board in a public meeting. And that in this case, with this policy, that is not clear. This board has not given me clear direction from the majority, and even this discussion is not clear to me.
Trustee Boss?
There's no question in my mind that we need a screen, and what goes on the screen that everybody agrees to is the copy. There shouldn't absolutely not be a second copy someplace else that's the official that we didn't see. What is shown is what should be the official copy. I don't need to be the one doing it. One of the staff can do it, and maybe we need a lot bigger screen. I guess we have projectors. Maybe we could put the projector up so that we can see it better. I didn't expect the size of the screen to be an issue. The whole idea is everybody sees it, the changes are made, and that is the version that's the official version. And it's fine with me if staff does it, but if they can't do it, I'll keep doing it.
Gotcha.
I just request realistic timelines. What is standard is a monthly meeting. And this board having special meetings, and again, I think this is our third week in a row that we've had a meeting. So again, monthly meetings, policies move from monthly meeting to monthly meeting. We review only 1 or 2 policies per month. That is what is standard. That is what works. That is what is success. That is what it should look like. And so I just want to make clear that these 1-week turnarounds with legal review in between is really an unrealistic expectation.
I don't think that we did material selection last week, so it's been longer than that.
But we,
Hold on, I got the floor. I would like to do something. We only have a couple more minutes left of this section. So the staff draft had a great section that I'd like to include in the board draft. And that, if you have your staff draft, it was on page 3, under materials for minors, the second paragraph. I would like to add that second paragraph under materials for minors from the staff draft into the regular draft on page 3. There's 2 different placements that we could put it in, depending on what anyone decides. We could put it as another bullet point right above gifts. Actually, I guess I should read that. Okay, so the section is protecting children aged 0 to 12 years from explicit and potentially developmentally damaging sexual content is a serious consideration for the entire community, library board and staff. For that reason, non-sexual nudity may only be included in the children's collection, which is geared for ages 0 to 12. If it is mild and material is specifically written and geared towards a very young audience, no graphic, visual, or written depictions of sex will be included in this collection. So we could put it either as another bullet point right above gifts on page 3, or we could put it towards the top of the page as the second full paragraph. Gardner?
I'm so confused. There has not been clear direction. Is it the majority of this board's expectation that I now make adjustments in these policies? Or is that going to be provided to me? I heard I don't have a concern, but there was no majority of the board giving me direction to update this policy. Is it my responsibility moving forward to update this policy and the other policy that's on the board?
Trustee Blank?
I would certainly like to see it come from the staff.
Trustee Claus?
I want the screen used, even if we go to projector, and if the staff is not willing to do that and make the live version on the screen be the official copy, then I don't want the staff doing it. I don't want a second copy there, different than what we're talking about. I want one copy that we all look at, and if we have to get a bigger screen, so be it.
I agree. I would like to have it up on the screen and see it, real time.
Just in, after the point of order was ruled upon, I realized that the library also has a job description and some other policies that may be relevant information. And one of those would be the public comment policy, which describes if disruptions and what is the language? I know council can maybe add some more information about if this is determined to be a disruption, then that may be a violation of a policy.
Trustee Hammond?
I still feel that the screen is an excellent tool to be used while the board meeting is in progress. What we agree to on the screen, I've never seen differences between what we agreed to verbally or what's put on the screen with what was produced by staff. And I think that I don't want to take ownership of the document, not just electronically. It's the board secretary's job, I understand, or the staff's job to keep the minutes of the meeting and keep track. And so I like the idea of using the screen as a tool while we're talking and trying to wordsmith. And then if we need to leave it there as part of, as assistance, to help the staff go ahead and jot down what they need to do to see what we agree to. Otherwise, I don't know who owns a document, I just think I think staff should own the document. I think the screen should be used in the conversation as we wordsmith a policy. And I think I can only see it being used for policy wordsmithing. And that's all. I think it's a tool. I think that the staff should own the actual outcome with the board decisions.
So.
Can I just say one thing?
We've been derailed and our time is up for that.
Can I ask for, I have something to ask for. I have something to ask for that's, I think, very important. And that is, I would like to have a written copy.
Done with that section.
I would like to have a written copy of the policy as it has been changed at a meeting given to me in my packet. That is what I'm asking for.
I agree. So we should ask staff to provide that.
Yes.
Okay, and all those in agreement with that?
All right.
Okay, it looks like we have majority consensus that we would like the staff to provide a written draft in every package. All right.
And how did the staff get that?
Of the changes from there.
I'll send it to them.
Okay. All right, so now we are moving on to discussion on insurance options. Trustee Robinson?
Well, I suppose, is there, I don't know if there's anything besides what today, but I think that we should go with what Redmond Insurance is suggesting, which is option 1 on their letterhead that they sent us. Did everybody get that today?
Why don't you read it? Why don't you talk about it?
Did everybody get the latest email from Redmond and Company?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's in your board packet too.
Yeah.
On the table.
Yeah.
I think that not having adequate insurance could be another catastrophic issue. So don't think that option 1 or option 2 protects us. I'm sorry, who's first? Trustee Blank?
So I would like to read this out loud to what Redmond Insurance, this is this brokerage that we're looking at. We advise the CLN to consider option one, which is to remain with the insurance that we have in the attached proposal for a couple of reasons. The first is to avoid paying an exit fee for leaving ICRIT midterm. Second, there will be many more insurance options available to the CLN at renewal in October rather than midterm. So what this company is saying, they are saying, don't use us until you get a new one, until we finish out this year. They are suggesting that. They are not saying we are underinsured. I have huge concerns that what we would be doing is we would be double paying for not any greater insurance. And this Redmond Insurance is saying we should stay with what we have. I can't believe that there would be another trustee that wouldn't look at this and understand that this is what this brokerage that you want is telling us to do.
Director?
I just wanted to communicate, I did have a conversation with an agent from an MMA, and their communication to me was that they did not anticipate any insurance options in light of our recent pending claims. And so they really felt that waiting until those claims are resolved would put us in a much better position. He didn't think that we would be able to obtain essentially insurance in our current state.
Okay, and was that the third option that you'd already applied to?
That was MMA, who we've worked with for more than 20 years.
Sure. Trustee Robinson?
And I'll say again, that Redmond Insurance that has been by some trustees pushed so hard on all of us, and they're a great company. For them to suggest that we stay with ICRIT until October when it comes up for renewal, and that they would have quotes for us then. They even give us the dates that we would have to let ICRIT know we were not staying with them, and the other date is they gave a date to reject the renewal in October, and there's another date on here. Let's see, community library. I guess just that they would have theirs. Oh, there it is. Applications must be filled out and submitted by Thursday, March 14th, 24. That's to Redmond, evidently. But for this company to give the three options, but tell this board that they suggest option one, I think is very impactful.
Director?
So we just received this yesterday, and I'll say openly that I have not had a chance to review every little aspect of it, and especially the coverages that are in the back. I did not compare those numbers with our actual policies yet. However, I will say that two things stood out to me immediately. One is that they are continuing to present Kinsale, which is a non-admitted company. I did do some basic research on what non-admitted means, and as I understand, it may be against the law to replace our admitted company and coverage with a non-admitted company and coverage. And so I have concerns, and I'd like to have that question addressed before the board would consider that seriously. I would also say that I think this was a tremendous amount of work from Redmond and from the agent, and there are many aspects that I like about it. But what I'm also seeing is lacking in this is that, and in fairness to this insurance provider, it is uncommon for Idaho government to go to the private market for a for-profit insurance policy. ICRIT covers the majority of Idaho government. And so I'm not sure that this analysis, if you would, especially I'm going to talk specifically to option 3, which states that we will have better liability coverage, and then list some of these items. I don't think it is understood that in Idaho, the statutes provide that there are what we call tort limitations. And I think it would be very beneficial for, if the board insists on getting involved in insurance decision-making, that they at least hear from legal about what tort limitations. For example, we may only have, so with our current lease option, it's very standard in commercial to lease to see a $2 million liability. Well, we only have $500,000. Why is it so low? Because we essentially cannot be forced to pay more than the cap on our liability. And so when I see these larger amounts that are listed in this Right American policy, it's kind of like if you were buying car insurance and you have a, beater Ford truck that's worth $1,000, and your insurance agent says, we're going to insure your car for $100,000, we'll fully cover everything. Well, you're not going to get $100,000 for your $1,000 beater truck. And essentially that's what I see going on here, where we have very high limits that we do not need, and we are paying for them. And so I think, is that a fair summary?
The policy limits in the Idaho Tort Claims Act don't prohibit us from having insurance above the $500,000 limit. However, that would increase the maximum award that a plaintiff could receive up to the limit of the collectible insurance amount.
And let me be clear, we're paying twice as much. So we're essentially paying for coverage that it does us no good. And so why would we do that?
Sure.
Okay, Trustee Glass.
So I want to clarify what the first trustee that talked about this, option 1, I think it was a misquote. It's up here on the screen. It said, if the community library wishes to stay with Great America for the remainder and shop out, we advise. And then it says doing these 3 bullet things. And when they receive it, it's if we decide. They aren't saying this is what we advise. They're just saying that if we do this, these applications need to be done by a certain day. I guess I would say, why did we have $5 million liability limits with ICRIMP and they cut it to 500,000, or in some cases, 3 million cut to 500,000? Why did we have that to start with? If this whole tort idea is limitation is applicable. I think we need option 3, and it's for another 6 months. It's not just for the remainder of the year. It would get us back to the liability. And I would like to move that we engage Redmond Insurance to bind CLN with their full coverage option 3 and cancel ICRIMP and Great American policy.
If I get a chance to have that written. Okay, okay, it has been moved that we engage Redmond Insurance to bind CLN with their full coverage offering option 3 and to cancel existing ICRIMP and Great American policies. Before we debate on that, I would like to offer an alternative, which is, hey, there's your glass. I would like to provide an alternative.
Point of order. I mean, we're in the middle of a, he just made a motion. We're in the middle of a motion. I mean, what you're doing is not part of what parliamentary procedure is.
No, I can offer a substitute motion, which is, I move that provided no other insurance quotes come in before February 23rd, 2024, that the board now accepts the Wright/American Family quotes as presented by Redmond Insurance Company, and we direct the director to bind said insurance on February 23rd and update the board that day. Once the insurance is bound, in effect, and the process completed with Redmond Insurance Company, the director will promptly cancel the ICRIMP and Great American policies and request a refund from each. So are you amenable to me substituting your motion?
Other than the date of February 23rd, which I didn't really want to find her doing by.
Point of order, point of order. I would like to see the parliamentary procedure section of the book that says that you can offer this motion in the middle of a motion.
Yeah, a person can always offer a substitute motion.
Okay, I'd like to hear the part of the parliamentary procedure that is an acceptable way to move an emotion.
Okay, I'm ruling on it that you can offer a substitute.
I would like to hear the section of the book.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna take 40 minutes to look that up.
So, okay, so
I've
that you're
ruled
gonna
on
use
it.
something.
I've
Okay,
ruled on it.
okay, I'm objecting to this. I think that this is an illegal motion that's been placed in front of us.
Can you read the parts that are different than mine? I guess I didn't follow it closely.
The whole thing.
You've got some very specifics in there.
Okay, so I'm gonna pass those down, I guess I didn't.
Can we let them all through? Or
No,
can we-
can you pass this one to the.
Are we distributing these?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Maybe
perhaps
make
you can
sure.
share one, yeah, 'cause I need to
Sure.
get this one. Yes.
I would like to, rebuttal. It does say, it being Redmond Insurance says, we advise the CLN to consider option 1 in the attack proposal for a couple of reasons. And they state their reasons. They are advising us because they looked through our existing policy. They know what's going on right now with the different branches. And they are advising us to consider option 1. So,
Okay, well, we have people champing at the bit to sue us, and that leaves us underprotected.
Is this good? Comments
Oh,
still?
we have-
Are you guys still debating the motion? I'm confused. What is the motion?
So
Do you have one of these?
I have substitute motion.
Who needs it?
Substitute motion that, provided no other insurance quotes come in before February 23rd, 2024, that the board now accepts the right/American family quotes as presented by Redmond Insurance Company. And we direct the director to bind said insurance on February 23rd and update the board that day. Once the insurance is bound, in effect, and the process completed with Redmond Insurance Company, the director will promptly cancel the ICRIMP and Great American policies and request a refund from each. So the reason why I stated it that way is we need to make sure that we have the other insurance before we cancel ICRIMP and Great American policies. We don't want to cancel them and then find out that, the binding or whatever the process didn't take.
So
So yes, trustee Black.
So I'm fine with it, except I just want to make it clear that it's option 3 you're talking about, because option 2, is it also? I don't know what the right American family is.
Oh,
I guess it says it in option 3 and the other one doesn't say.
yes, so option
Okay.
3.
So I'm fine with that if you want
Are you
to give a
withdrawing?
specific date.
I would think it would be called a friendly amendment. So Blas could withdraw his motion as a friendly amendment. Chair Ottison's motion could substitute, and then you would have debate whether or not to do that.
Okay,
Whether or not.
so do we have a vote on whether to, I guess you voluntarily withdraw your motion.
You do
And then I-
the friendly amendment.
Okay, I'd like to add a friendly amendment, that provided, provided no other insurance quotes come in before February 23rd, 2024, that the board now accepts the right/American family quotes as presented by Redmond Insurance Company. And we direct the director to bind said insurance on February 23rd and update the board that day. Once the insurance is bound, in effect, and the process completed with Redmond Insurance Company, The director will promptly cancel the iCrimp and Great American policies and request for refund from each. Okay, so right now we're only voting on substituting. We're not actually voting on the final product. Okay, so, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so the ayes have it, and we now have the substitute motion or substitute friendly substitute motion. Provided that no other insurance quotes coming before February 23rd, 2024, that the board now accepts the right American Family quotes as presented by Redmond Insurance Company. We directed director to find said insurance on February 23rd and update the board that day. Once the insurance is bound in effect and the process completed with Redmond Insurance Company, the director will promptly cancel the iCramp and Great American policies and request a refund from each. Okay, so now we have substituted that. Trustee Blunt.
All right, based upon figures that I looked at and things that were handed out last month, we will be increasing our monthly insurance costs by $3,500 at the least by replacing these insurance policies. We received, and I'm going to say this again, we received a proposal from the right insurance company that gave us limits but provided us no information on what exclusions there are. We have absolutely no way to compare the right insurance policy with what we have now with iCrimp. Absolutely none, because they have not given us full information on their policy. It would be irresponsible, and I'm going to say this several times, and reckless to move forward with these policies. In addition to that, with the by dropping the American Family, is it American, Great American, or Great American, and going with American Family, we are increasing, I think it's doubled it, doesn't it? Doubles the policy, and it is not as good a policy. This one we're able to compare. So we will be dropping a policy that's half the price and a better policy. And what you keep saying is, well, we need to be other covered. You can't even tell if the right policy covers us as well as the iCrimp, because they haven't given us enough information to compare them. This is insane. I have absolutely no idea why you would want to spend $3,500 more a month for policies that we don't even know are better than what we have.
Trustee Foster.
Oh, the following pages I'm showing up there on the screen is the summary of all of them. They don't have an exact matching breakdown, but you can't say we have no idea. It's a full list, right? And then we also had it broken down for what we have now for iCrimp. You can look at autos, all of it's in there. It's just they don't have apples to apples on some of the things, so you can't get me what you can compare. We do know what it is, and it's right there.
Trustee Blank.
Did you, I think,
I haven't gone. But
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
it was up.
Oh, I thought it was,
Oh,
oh,
it was up.
it was up. I thought it was up.
Well, it wasn't up. I didn't beat it just now, but I haven't spoken on insurance, but go ahead. I don't
Okay,
care. I
all
don't
right.
care who goes when.
What those lists show are what the maximums are. They do not show any of the exclusions. The exclusions is where you get all of your insurance taken away. We have no idea what things are excluded from the policy and rights. And if it's not apples to apples, it needs to be compared. It needs to be compared in that way, so we can really look at it. For $3,500 a month, you guys are going in with your eyes closed.
Trustee Hayden.
I just want to say that the board is being scrutinized regularly, internally or externally, on being fiscally responsible, whether it's legal costs or insurance and other matters. if we are under, and our job is to be good fiduciaries for the taxpayers out there. If we are underinsured, and I don't know that, we have I think it's $500,000 coverage in the area we're trying to cover up here. If we're not adequately covered, then it would be responsible to go to someone to get adequate coverage. And that would make us good custodians and good fiduciary if they're doing our job. So, I guess I don't know what it takes, meaning is $500,000 not enough? If it isn't, then I think we should consider moving on because otherwise we are exposed, financially exposed.
So we talked a little bit, we didn't go into too much details, but we talked about the public procurement requirement for government entities. And we mentioned a couple of times last meeting that the selection needs to be based on objective criteria. I have not heard a single criteria that the board is using other than it was provided in this packet from one insurance company. One selection criteria might be the history and working relationship of a company that we've used for 20 years, or whether they're new to us. The real property coverage, again, it doesn't specify to us what is value for each property. And again, it's unclear. It has in their list of subjective that we have to provide a building update for any building over 20 years. Well, like Post Falls is over 20 years. It talks about, again, our 5-year value loss runs. I think that last meeting you were told that this was insufficient in order for legal counsel to provide any analysis. I have told you, I just got this and I can't compare or read through everything that this agent is providing. But I did tell you that there are 2 issues with this right away, and one of them might be a crime. The fact that this board is moving forward because they're concerned that everybody is going to sue us. What about other insurance providers in this community? What about this displaced insurance provider? Have they been treated fairly? Were they given the same information? Were they notified of the selection criteria? I have no means of defending this board on what criteria they used. This has never come to the library board. The selection criteria is made by staff and then a recommendation is made to the board. So this action is another opportunity for us to be sued, and I find it reckless, absolutely reckless that we're talking about this in this way without legal counsel.
Sure.
Trustee Wallace?
So we have known for 6 months that ICRIM dropped our coverage from 5 million liability to 500,000 for 6 months. And we asked at Pinehurst and the other library, Harrison, we asked for 3 quotes. We asked for whatever quotes can be gotten. And we have never got a single quote until, well, actually, at the end of January, and it's the same quote as this. It's the only thing we've had in 6 months that's restored that is an opportunity to restore our liability. That's why we're doing it. I am frustrated with ICRIP that they think they can lower our limits and not, and keep the exact same premiums and not even give us a quote for restoring it. I think all government agencies should start looking someplace else for their insurance. So we've given adequate time to get some quotes and nothing has been done until this. That's why I want it.
I think the board is so ignorant about the insurance process that they don't understand that you get insurance quotes on an annual renewal basis. this board was not essentially clear about what timeline they wanted to move insurance forward. And at that meeting, again, we want it right now, we want it immediately, we want it in April, we don't want it at all, we want it next year. So again, I think having a mid-year policy is, a quote for a mid-year policy is difficult. It's not impossible, but it is irregular. However, stop for a second and realize that we are in the middle of a multi-million-dollar claim that is pending. We are not highly insurable until that is resolved. So I would recommend that instead of saying, I am frustrated, speak on behalf of the best interest of this district and act more conservatively, more responsibly. Keep our policies in line, keep our actions in mind. Stop taking these risks that are going to continue to make us less insurable. And think about the entity and the money that we don't have and that we may be very shortly called on to expend from our reserve. So I find it also reckless that I just said today that if ICRIMP withdraws some of our coverage, this board may be faced with a $750,000 capital or reserve fund expenditure. And so we are spending today without even having heard that or processed that or have a final answer on whether that's going to happen to us or not, expending another $105,000. So again, I have said that I believe this action is violating the financial management policy. I am not voluntarily giving away my authority to this board. This is a bullying action. This authority for decision-making and criteria and putting out that information lies with the director, and you are forcibly taking it from me.
I remind everyone that the financial management policy only delegates financial decisions under 50,000 to the director. This is over 50,000, we would have to approve it. And again, this quote's going to expire, and I don't know if we're going to get another one. We waited 6 months for this one. A bird in the hand is better than 2 next year. I don't know what would be available. And this is not for the rest of the year. This is a full 12 months from February to next February.
Trustee Blank?
So our insurance with ICRIMP, our liability is the only thing that was reduced. Is that correct?
I apologize. I'm just going to draw the attention to the chair that our time is up.
I move that we adjourn.
There's a motion to.
It's been moved.
Is that still on the table?
Yes.
We need
Okay,
to postpone it. I move that we postpone it. I mean, we have to table it. We can't make this decision right
Okay.
now.
I move that we extend the meeting 10 minutes.
Okay, actually, did you move that we adjourn?
And
I did, but I didn't realize that motion was still floating around.
Okay, so
So she
retracted
withdraw.
that.
Yes, I retract my.
Okay, so you move that we extend the meeting 10 minutes? Okay, has been moved that we extend the meeting 10 minutes. All those in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye. All those
Yay,
opposed?
nice to go. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. All right, so the ayes have it and the meeting is extended.
I don't know if we're able to table it, but we
I-
cannot make a meeting.
I call for question.
Okay, the question has been called, which means that we vote on whether we're going to vote on the question. So all those in favor of,
Can you clarify,
Oh, okay.
what we're moving to do?
okay, so the question has been called, which means that we're going to vote on whether we're going to vote on the
There's
question.
no more discussion.
Provided no other insurance votes come in before it gets, no other discussion. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, does that mean if we say no, we want further discussion, can we have that now or what?
No discussion.
No more
We're gonna vote.
Okay,
Wait a
Okay,
sec, no. We get,
Question.
calling for the question, yes, there's no more discussion, but
Right, yes, and so that's all we're voting on right now is whether to proceed without further
discussion.
discussion.
No.
So
Today?
those,
further
Yes.
discussion today,
Yes.
next meeting?
Or,
When you call,
Well, then
When you-
we're gonna actually vote on the
when
motion.
you call the question, the discussion is ended.
no, you
Well,
vote
we're
on
clarifying.
calling the question, and if everybody agrees to do it, then the
Yeah,
discussion
we
is.
have to vote on that. So, all those in favor of ending discussion, voting on, the motion that's on the table, say aye.
I want a roll call vote.
Okay, roll call votes. Trustee Fox? Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Blank?
This is calling for the question, the vote right now, where we have no more discussion. Is that right? Nay.
Okay, Trustee Henley?
Fine.
Okay, and Trustee Addison is an aye, so the question has been called. We will now vote on the motion, which is, provided no other insurance quotes come in before February 23rd, 2024, that the board now accepts the rights/American Family quotes as presented by Redmond Insurance Company, and we direct the director to bind said insurance on February 23rd and update the board that day. Once the insurance is bound, in effect, and the process completed with Redmond Insurance Company, the director will promptly cancel the iTramp and Great American policies and request a refund from each. So all those in
And
favor,
roll call, please.
okay, roll call vote. Trustee
Aye.
Glass? Trustee Robinson?
Nay.
Trustee Blank?
Nay.
Trustee Henley?
Aye.
And Trustee Addison is an aye, so that.
It is the most irresponsible board I have ever seen.
I am so
$3,500 more a month for it's reckless.
Okay, so the,
I move we adjourn.
I was not done speaking, so, the motion that provided no other insurance quotes come in February, or in before February 23rd, 2024, that the board now accepts the right American Family quotes as presented by Redmond Insurance Company, and we direct the director to bind said insurance on February 23rd and update the board that day. Once the insurance is bound in effect and the process completed with Redmond Insurance Company, the director will promptly cancel the iTramp and Great American policies and request a refund from each, and that has passed. All right. So,
I move we adjourn.
We still have.
we still have 7 minutes.
So,
But that still has the floor, she can move to adjourn, but it does require a second and a majority vote.
No, we don't do seconds.
Okay, well, if it's under the small board, then it doesn't, it still requires a majority vote.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning now, say aye.
negative.
They-
Okay, and those opposed, all right.
Oh,
so- Okay, so we have one aye, and that is not enough to carry it. So we will move on to discussion of public comment policy, public etiquette and signs. Director asked us to pare things down since this is not pressing at this time and hasn't seemed to have been too much of a problem lately. Could we agree to postpone this to a regular May meeting? And the reason why it's May is because, Robert's rule says not beyond the third month.
I would just point out that I believe it was trustee Robinson that asked for this item on the agenda, so I think it's disrespectful if we can't postpone it until she can be present.
I'm fine with postponing.
I'm fine with postponing. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful.
No.
I just hadn't thought of that. Okay, then we took care of the executive session at the beginning and discussion of future agenda requests. Trustee Henley?
I think for a future meeting, and I don't think it should be a month from now, we need to have a plan put forth regarding our biggest facilities and disruption to service emergency that's taken place in the 40-year history of the CLN. So I don't know what meeting that would be. I guess we can call a special meeting at some future date. But I do think that the board needs to know and the public needs to know what the plan is going forward. And I'm having a difficult time supporting any expenditures of money absent that information. So we did have, I don't know where you want, there was a request. We debated, not debating, there was a request from the public to the board saying they wanted a media equal opportunity discussion at some point. I did see that. Then we have layoff possible discussions, RIFs and furloughs. We have zero plans, what's going on with regard to the 2 closed facilities, and yet I have no knowledge of people being taken off the payroll. I'm not promoting that. I think there are opportunities to give limited service and keep people employed. So I don't know, do we just, I cannot add things to the agenda and request a special meeting if that's the way to go with I've got lots of things here that need to be addressed, but I think the biggest one is what's going on with regard to the current insurance adjuster, the plans going forward, financial side of it, moving books, renting a place. There's a lot of hot issues going on that are left in abeyance potentially for another month.
I think the director has an answer. Okay, Director?
And I'll be honest, the action today with changing insurance and when that is bound, all of my communication was with our previous or our soon, I guess, to be previous. So coverage of lease space and requirements about whether or not they would change the possible lease language since they're not, I mean, even that action has changed the direction and the feasibility. So I'm happy to present a plan when ICRIM makes a decision. I don't have a final date. I don't know how we're going to receive the communication. I have no control over that. So I think what would be best is to, again, instead of trustees forcing a specific agenda on a specific date and time, that it be dependent on when the director has information to present.
Trustee Foss?
I don't, on that comment, I don't understand why an occurrence that happened on January 14th or whatever the date was, ICRIP is obligated to pay what it needs to get this straightened out. I don't see why that would change anything with them paying for a leased facility. They're obligated to make this right for us.
Okay, so I don't want to get off an agenda item there, but again, I don't know if it was understood that we had over $6 million. If the ICRIM determines that it was weather related, and if they consider it pipes and fittings, then our entire claim coverage goes down to $1 million. So to say you don't understand why either we have $7 million access to, or we have $1 million access to, how that's going to make a decision or change in process or planning.
The date was January 14th or whatever that Sunday was. That was the date of the occurrence, and we had ICRIP. ICRIP has to cover us.
And again, at a potentially much reduced amount.
Why would they choose to cover us for $7 million? Just because we're gonna stay with them for another 6 months. But it's going by that occurrence and that date. And
I think what she's trying to say is, if we have a $7 million coverage, that will force one plan. If we have a $1 million coverage, that will force another. She cannot answer until she finds out what the coverage is. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I would just say, because I know, again, not anyone on this board, except for maybe Katie and the staff here having public government experience, government is not known for being fast moving. And the insurance industry is also not known for being fast moving. So when you combine government and insurance, again, here's an example. In order to get that lease approved, I had to talk to the ICRIM adjuster. I had to talk to the ICRIM underwriter. I had to talk to our legal services. And this is already after I've been negotiating with a property manager. So it gets done. It is slow. And so just in terms of managing the board's expectation, you don't think that a response in a month or the length of the response, this is how it goes. And I channel a phrase, it is what it is, because I do not have any control of ICRIM, of adjusters, of contractors, of any of all this information. And so again, I'm going to recommend that the trustees trust me, that when I have information to present, I'm happy to call a meeting.
Great, so our time is up. We either need to adjourn or
I move we adjourn.
Has been moved that we adjourn. All those in favor?
All right.
All right, the ayes have it and we are now adjourned. Thank you.